we're going into the last week of the NBL. Yes, before next week's playoffs. Offs. Yes, the predictions for this next week, plus what do we expect? What teams are going to be in the playoffs? What teams are not in the playoffs? And who can make it through the first round in the playoffs after this week? That and more. This for now on Sports Hour. Alright, so this week is week 18, which is the last week in the NBL season's playoffs. For right before the playoffs will occur very soon here. In fact, looking at what we have for the playoffs, make sure I'm correct about this. The playoffs will occur very soon after that. That will occur Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of this next week. So this will be a week that will matter a lot for some of the teams. I don't seem to have. Yeah, so here's so the 5th is going to be the first game of the NBL playoffs. And that is Thursday. Okay, I have this a little bit off. It looks like it's not Thursday. First day of the NBL playoffs will be the 7th. It only occur through the 9th. Then the earliest will be the 9th, all the way to the 11th. Then the 11th and 12th will be of the 11th through the 12th will be those 2 games, and then the 13th, 14th, and 15th will be the Ball Bowl. So the game it will be over on the 13th. I'll have a video, about that going right after the Ball Bowl about who's in. And then there won't be a video in for several months after that because of the factor that we have to get decided. We have to get all the draft points starting, and I believe think I might have messed up a little bit. See, Friday is messed up a little bit because the 5th through the 7th is the first round, first games. Then the 7th through the 9th are the second games. And then we have the 10th through the 12th. Is that right? 10th through 12th? No, 10th and 11th will be the conference. And the Ball Bowl will occur on the 12th through the 13th. So all the games will be finished up on the 13th. We have all the playoff games currently in here. I will need to get this up. So here is the current playoff positions. Most of the games have been decided at this point. So you'll see all of these teams are currently in the playoff position if playoffs were to end before week 18 was over. However, we do have the Browns and Knights are fighting for the last wild card slot. So if the Browns win this week and the Knights do lose, then the Browns will be in the playoffs, or vice versa. If they both win, it will still stay in this exact scenario. If they both lose, the same thing happens. All the ones that are in the positions are correct. I may be a little bit wrong about these. I think the dates I think are wrong. Yeah, so the first game will be Wednesday at 1 o'clock is the first game. And that's the Colts and the Ravens. The last game will be on Friday at no, that's not right. So so the games will occur on Wednesday and Thursday. If I understand correctly. Yes. Is that right, Alex? Yeah, so it would be Wednesday and Thursday. The first official game will be on Friday. The games will be kind of late going onto that day, but they are officially games on that day. Yeah, the last official games will happen at 6. Oh, sorry, the last official games will happen at 7 on Thursday. They will have until the 5th. The 5th, which is Sunday, so they'll have the first games will occur on 6-4 through 6-6. Then 6-7 through 6-9 will be the 6-7 through 6-8 are the next games, and then 6-9 through 6-10 will be the next, and then the last games will occur as they are scheduled currently on 6-12 and 6-13. That is the current rates. That the dates might change slightly, and the times get. The way it works is it is best of 3. So the Panthers will automatically move on to the second round, and that's ensured. Whoever has the higher seed will play against them of these games. All 3 of these games will occur, and they will be occurring not at the same time, but they'll be occurring back to back pretty much. At that time, haven't really determined yet about what the times are for those games, but they are currently going to be there. And if we go to this, it's the records will not be shown on this, by the way. So you will not see teams that have made the playoffs on this list anywhere here for anyone that goes back through here and shares it. You'll see it only on this list. As for the standings, pretty much all the standings have been locked. There is a possibility that Superman and the Bobcats switch places at this point, or the Bobcats and the Werewolves switch places since they are currently tied. Werewolves have the lead at the moment, but don't have it. I don't have the insurance at the moment. But moving to the biggest important thing, this is the last week, and it's important. We have the Colts and the Ravens. A prediction 10 points in favor of the Colts. My prediction this week is going to be very interesting. This week I'm not putting the predictions out because it doesn't make much of a difference. The prediction chart. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to predict who I think is going to win, not doing the actual prediction. And I think next season there's not going to be a prediction. I'm just going to predict who I win, who I think is going to win, who I think is going to lose. To shorten these videos down, these Sports Hour episodes down a little bit, because right now they're like 30 minutes long. All right, this week I am going to look at what their records are going into this week. The Colts and Ravens have a pretty tough game ahead of them. The Ravens currently are 10-7. Going in this week, I will put that up. Versus the Colts, who have really struggled all season. They'll probably get a pretty early round bye, being 6-10-1. My prediction this week is that the Ravens will win. I don't think the Colts have what it takes to actually show up enough to win the game. It's going to be pretty close either way. But I'm not doing more predictions this week, but we're going to get to it because predictions meant nothing. Lightning and Packers. Lightning we've got here at 6-11, not in a playoff position and not even a chance to get even close to the playoffs. They're currently actually slightly behind the Colts versus the Packers, who are at the same record. So they're pretty much looking who's worse. Now, looking at what they've done in previous years, the the ABL West, AFC, the Packers and Lightning have played. The Packers won that game. Okay, this is going to be a week that will mean a lot to the Packers or Lightning to see who can get the better seed. Because, to be honest, it's going to be kind of it. Just going to give you a little clarification, the playoffs are a little weird because there are still 5 rounds, but the way it works is if you have the worst record, you have the best pick in the first round, but then they have the worst pick in the second round, and so on. To kind of balance everything out. Don't really know how we're going to do that at any point. It won't be happening until February. I'll have some videos going on in January about that. But looking at that, I will predict the Lightning will win this game. Lightning have actually done pretty well for their first couple of games, if I'm correct. Yeah, Lightning actually did really well for their first 5 games and played some decent opponents, but they were kind of sad. Packers, however, were kind of disappointing for their first 5 games, and it just doesn't really show up for me. I'm going to go with the Lightning winning this game. All right, Panthers and Pirates. Panthers all while have had a kind of disappointing season. It hasn't been their best season. They are 15-2. They are 15-2 at this point. But they still have a pretty good chance of getting to. They're getting into the playoffs for sure. They could potentially get all the way to the ball bowl again, which would be. I'm going to go and get the other thing up here, which would be their I don't even know what season this is for them straight. Uh, I mean, they have it's a what's this is their 19th straight season where they have made it to the playoffs. So 19th straight season they have been fans. Now, grant they have been undefeated in 16 of those seasons. So this is their first season where they've actually had a loss. Lost two of them, in fact, going to the season. Although they still will have the first seed at this moment in time. The Pirates, they have just been. They have not done too well. In the previous game, the Panthers did beat them, and I have to say, I feel like that is probably going to be the same thing that's going to happen in this game as well. Pirates are only 6-11, although I feel like the Pirates might be one of those teams that comes back. They did really well in the last season. If we go back to the last season here, Pirates actually did have done pretty decently for the last 2 years. They are not going to make playoffs this year, and unfortunately, they've lost the division round both of those last 2 years. They actually did make the playoffs. But honestly, I think this is going to be a very tough matchup. And this is one of those games that is divisional. Lightning Packers is also divisional. Colts Raiders are not. Browns and Otters. I mean, looking through the Browns and Ravens. Browns currently have a decent record and are on the edge of either making the playoffs or not making playoffs. So, Browns and Otters is going to be a tough game. They're currently 9-8. They are currently on the edge of the playoffs. Either they make the playoffs or the Knights make the playoffs. And the Browns would like to make the playoffs if they have the ability to, but it's going to be tough when they're facing off against a 12-5 team. Not only to mention that, the last time the Browns were in the playoffs, looking at this here, well, the last time the Browns were actually in the playoffs was in 2017. So, and now they got eliminated in the wild card round. And previously to that, they had only made the playoffs one other time, and that was back in 2015 when they actually had 4 seasons, when they actually had 2 seasons in every year. And they were also eliminated in the wild cards of that year. Of course, at that time, there were actually more teams in the playoffs. But it is going to be a tough game for them this week. I have to predict the Otters will be the team that will win. But I'm hoping to say Browns, you kind of need to. Not mention the Otters do have a much better team overall. All right, moving to the next one we have is the Lions and Tigers game. Lions are currently have the best record of teams in the ABL. They're actually ensured to be the best, have the best league in less periods. Yes, versus the Tigers, who are currently trying to hang on to their division, being 11-6. Because here's the thing: Ravens have a chance if the Ravens do win and the Tigers lose, the Ravens will actually clinch the division if they do have that do they do actually if they win. If the Tigers win and the Ravens lose, doesn't matter. But if the Tigers lose and the Ravens win, then the Ravens will have the playoffs and will be in it. I have to go with the Lions here, however, because I think the Lions have a much better team overall, and I feel it. Although the Lions haven't done particularly well over the last couple years. I mean, last time they made the playoffs was back in 2017 as well, and previous to that, they hadn't made a playoffs since 2013. So, in fact, is that even right? 2000. Yeah, it was 2013 in the fall in their fall season. The fall season was the last time they made the playoffs, and they did do very well in that year. They actually went 12 and 6 in that year, but they lost in divisional round. So that was a long time ago. This has been a long time. They've had a pretty big drought, and honestly, haven't done really well. Oh, they did make. I'm sorry, they did make the playoffs in 2 years, not last year, 2 years ago, when they actually lost the divisional round. But they have only been in the playoffs 2 out of their last 15 seasons, I believe. Not exactly a mean number. I have to say, I think the Lions are going to do really well, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a team that makes it into the Bowl. All right, Dolphins. This is a divisional matchup, I believe, at 350. The Dolphins play against the Supermen. Nope, that's not a divisional matchup. That's my bad. It is, however, the game of the week. Dolphins and the Supermen are here, and yes, the Dolphins are not in the playoffs, but they are currently in a pretty good position to wipe the floor clean of the Supermen. The Supermen are in the playoffs and are ensured the playoffs at this point in time. This is going to be a tough matchup. They have exact opposite records. But here's the deal for the Dolphins. Dolphins have only scored about 80 points per game, which is pretty low. Oh, I messed up for that. Both these teams have one tie. There's tie was really the big portion for this. Looking at versus the Supermen, who have scored about 90 points per game. They are very different yet. The difference is the Supermen have scored a whole lot more points. Actually, it's only about 10 points higher than the tier teams that they have played against. But the Dolphins have scored less than their amount, and it's almost closer to 100 points for that amount for those units. I'm going to go with the Supermen winning this week, and I think it's going to be a much better chance. Alright, Athens and Supermen. This is a divisional matchup, and I will say I have to change this game of the week. It's not right. I had the wrong one. The Athens and Supermen. The Athens have a 10-7 record, which is a divisional clinch, by the way. And UNC has a 7-10 record. Exact opposite records, but this is a pretty big matchup, and it's not the game of the week. Why did I say it was the game of the week? It is a divisional matchup. Both these teams have actually done pretty decently in the context of division. Here's the thing about the Athens, though. It's not Athens. Athens haven't lost a game in their division, if I had that correct. No. I don't think the Athens have lost a game in their division. Now, here's the factor though. I'm just looking at the UNC. They started off terrible. They did terrible in most of their games. In fact, the games they did win, they scored very low amount of points. Their first real big game was the Falcons and then Chargers. Both those games they did pretty well, and they have not scored very highly. Indians was their next highest score, and that was this last week, where they demolished the Indians. But that's one because the Indians haven't done very well either. In my opinion, this is going to be a very interesting game. However, UNC was actually one in the previous ABL team, and UNC, if I'm correct here, UNC actually went with 3 undefeated straight seasons. 3 undefeated seasons. That was back in 2017, 2016, and 2015. They had 3 undefeated seasons. Is that correct? No, wrong years. 2016, 2017, 2018 has been when they combined seasons after that year, where they had 3 undefeated seasons. Undefeated seasons. Now they made the playoffs on all 3 of those years. They did not make it all the way to the Bowl, but one of those years, however, they were 18-0 at that point. 16-0. Sorry, the ABL had less amount of games, playing twice against the Panthers in those years. They have done really well. In 2015, they also had an 18-0 season. So it was a interesting end for the UNC not make playoffs this year. However, Athens is a very new team. If you go back to Athens here, Athens actually have made it to the playoffs 2 of the years. Then they were terrible. And they are going to go back into the playoffs this year with a 10-6 record, which is not great, but not bad. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those teams that goes insane in the playoffs and makes it at least to the divisional round. In my prediction, Athens will win this game. I keep saying Athens, it's Athens will win this game. Okay, big game between the Falcons and the Saints. Saints are in the playoffs with a divisional round with the record of 10-7. Falcons are very disappointed to only have a 4-13 record, even though they did beat the Pirates last week. The problem here is that both the Pirates and the Falcons, both the Falcons and the Saints have not scored very high in their scores. They've actually averaged out between the two teams of 82 points per game. They've also allowed more points in their games. On average, the Saints have a better amount of points they've scored overall because they have more wins. But the Falcons have almost a 200-point difference in that points. I'm going to go with the Saints here. I think it's very obvious. It's a very interesting dilemma for these two games. But I think it's going to be the Saints all the way. Chargers and Jets. Looking at this week, Chargers are looking at being a very disappointing team, being 6-10-1, versus the Jets, who were actually predicted to be the number 1 team, by the way. Number 1 prediction. If I go back to the more in the UBL South, but the prediction at the beginning of the season was that they were supposed to go 14-1 at 14 and 14-4 at the end of the season and be first. They are going to finish likely last in their division. Well, not quite. They're going to finish probably third. But honestly, facing Chargers is going to be a very tough game for them. It is, in fact, divisional. No, it's not divisional. In my opinion, this is going to be a very interesting game for both these teams, and both these teams are fighting for a pretty low mid position in the playoffs, which is probably not great for teams that be in the middle. You don't want to be in the middle if you are in for going for the draft. You want to be either the beginning or the end. I'm going to go with the Jets winning this game, but it's going to be a very interesting game. Bulldogs and the Bobcats. The Bulldogs and the Bobcats. The Bobcats have a chance, are in the playoffs as the last seed. They must win. They want to win this game, however. They're currently in the 7th seed. They can, however, get bumped up all the way to the 4th seed if they win this week. They're currently 9-7-1 versus the Bulldogs, who, let's see here. Bulldogs are currently 7-10. Bulldogs really would like to win this game, so they are stuck, but they're still stuck in the middle. But the Bobcats want to win. If they do not win, and then they are for sure going to get the 7th seed, which is pretty bad because, according to stats we have here, the last time a 7th seed made the playoffs, made it all the way to the middle was actually 2 years ago, believe it or not. But previous to that, there was only been one other scenario where a 7th seed has made it to the playoffs. And that was back in 2008. So, yeah, a long time ago. That was the third year for the NBL. It took a long time to get that. Now, previously there were actually 8 seeds, and of those teams, only one team in the entire teams have actually made it as the 8th seed to inside the playoffs and won a game. In my opinion, this is going to be a very tough game, but the Bobcats, I think, are going to win this game. Yeah, so if you look here, the Athens actually won their division, I believe, at 1 year. It wasn't the Athens. Wasn't it Athens? Yeah, I think it was actually Athens because teams got mixed around during that year. I think the Athens were actually were actually the team that won because the Saints were in that division at one point, and the Athens did actually make it in that year. The divisionals are a little bit mixed up right now, but that is how they've worked. The Athens won the division, and that was the only way they made the playoffs, and they made it all to the Bowl, and then they lost against the Panthers. So this should be a fun game. Westville and the Angels. Angels, unfortunately, are in a position where they're not exactly happy. They're not going to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs this year, although they have been in the playoffs several of the last couple of the years. Both these teams have pretty sad records. In fact, the last time the Angels were in the playoffs, actually, they were in the playoffs for the divisional round, and then they lost the wild card last year. They are about half and half, I believe. Is that correct? Half and half. So they have been to the playoffs one more time than they have actually than they weren't in the playoffs. No, 24 and 23. Is that correct? There have been 35 seasons. They have made it a total of 19 times. So they are been slightly a bit better than half for that. But looking at this, it's going to be a very interesting game. Westville hasn't done very well on that. It's a very, very new team in playoffs. They actually came right before that, and I have to say, they have not made the playoffs. And unfortunately, this year is not one of the teams these years are gonna make the playoffs. I'm gonna give Angels the benefit here, and I think they're gonna win this game. Werewolves and Dragons. Werewolves are in a position where they want to win. If they do not win, it's going to be a possibility that they don't even make the playoffs as any more than a wild card. As for the Dragons, being the ones that have been disappointing all year, 6-11. Here's the deal: Werewolves win this game, they are insured the division because of the fact they have a current. If I'm correct here. They currently have a 9. Never mind. Never mind. So here's the thing: if they win, they are in the playoff. They're in the playoffs as the 4th seed. But if they lose or tie, and the Bobcats win, then the Bobcats will have gotten the 4th seed, and they will get the 7th seed, which is the last seed in the division. They'll move from 4 to 7 at that point, and it's not something that you really want to get. I'm going to predict the Dragons to lose this game. There's no chance the Dragons actually have what it takes. Dragons have done okay in the playoffs overall. Not really. They have not done very well. The last time the Dragons record's actually really bad in the playoffs. Dragons have only 10 times they've made it to the playoffs, which means they have not made it to the playoffs 25 times. We're going to update the way that how many times teams have made the playoffs on this list very shortly after the playoffs have gone, and you'll see all the teams that have made the playoffs. So how many times they've made the playoffs and how many times they have not made the playoffs. Up to 2008, so it's a long time. And remember, there were a lot of seasons before this, so you'll see quite a few more. It was 35 seasons. This is the 35th season here in the NBL. All right, Giants and Cardinals. This is a big game, and this is the game of the week. Oops, that's not how you do it. This is the game of the week. I don't know if it is the. It is not. It's a divisional match. It's not a divisional matchup. Cardinals being 12-5. This is the game of the week, and it is tough. Think of it this way: the Giants have done really well. However, their playoff things have not shown that. In fact, they're one of the newer teams. This is the first time they have made the playoffs, believe it or not. Ever. They have not made the playoffs. They've only been around for 15 seasons. They have never made the playoffs. And it's kind of sad for this. And for them, they have never made the playoffs. This is their first year into the playoffs. You might wonder is what changed? Well, the Giants in the draft this year got a pretty good pick. They were pretty bad. They were not last. They got 5 really good rookies, and all of them have been very good. Ramos is actually not a rookie, but he was probably their biggest star for the entire year. And for that, and Cardinals have lost someone last year, but it comes down to both these teams having a pretty good record. Both these teams have literally actually within half a point of each other. They both have about 93 points, 93, 94 points per game, and it's going to be an interesting game for them. Game of the week, I'm going to go with the Giants winning this week. It's Hawks have been one of the most disappointing teams in the NBL. Hawks were predicted to be one of the best teams in the NBL. In fact, they were predicted to win their division, I'm pretty sure. I'll look at that in a second. However, the Knights need to win this game, and honestly, I think it's very likely that they'll win this game for multiple reasons. I don't think the Hawks have what it takes. Hawks are supposed to be really good. If you look at this, their scoreline is that they have a 283-point differential versus the Knights, who have only 260. But they haven't done too well, and the Hawks have actually done really well over the last couple of years, if I'm correct. They actually have made to the playoffs 30 times. They're one of the teams that have been here for all the seasons 30 times. They've only not been to the playoffs 5 times. This will be 36 for them. If you look at the Hawks, they've actually done pretty decently. Not a record that's going up in flames, but it is a record that is pretty huge for them. Indians and Tex. Okay, Indians and Tex, I believe, is a divisional game, isn't it? Indians. Okay, Indians and Tex is not a divisional game. But Indians are kind of a team that is in the middle of a lot of things. They've been around for all 35 seasons as well, believe it or not. Although their names changed several times throughout the entire seasons. And the Tex here were 9, 7, and 1. This is going to be a tough game between these two teams. It happens at Thursday, which means they'll be able to be playing in a field that will have a light. I believe it's inside courts. I have to go with Tex winning this week, but it's going to be a very interesting game. All right, final one, the Beagles and the Dog. The Dogs are back and barking. 12, 4, and 1, I believe, is the record for that. They're not divisional. No, 12 and 5. Versus the Dogs, who unfortunately are not going to make the playoffs. It's kind of sad for them not to make the playoffs, but it is one of those games that it's one of those teams that's going to well, we didn't make it this year, we'll be back and barking next year. It's 10. This game will be actually, I think, one of the tougher games of the week for a very good reason. Beagles have a pretty good record. And I think they'll have a really decent season. They actually have one of the better teams in it. Dogs don't have the worst team, and they have been kind of rounded on it. I'm going to go with the Beagles to win this week, but that is all I'm going to be able to say for that. Looking at the games this week, it will be very interesting to see who makes it into the playoffs. It comes down to the Browns and Knights, who will be fighting for the 7th seed in the NBL playoffs. That is all for Sports Hour. However, for this week, I will see you guys in the video, which will happen on Saturday. You'll see a video on Saturday or Sunday, one of those 2 days, for who has made it through the playoffs so far. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.